Thank you, Alex. Hello, everybody. I'm Nicu Popescu, generative artist from Romania, and I'm going to share today with you some insights from my paper, Algorithmic Archaeology of Folk Motifs. While I was experimenting with the reaction diffusion systems in P5.js, I was struck by some outputs that resembled motifs that looked very familiar from my childhood, from my grandparents' house, from carpets, traditional carpets, embroideries, and later on also these echoed in my travels. I've seen similar patterns in Peru and as such. And I thought maybe I could I could make a code that would create folk designs. But the motifs I generated, while they look similar to the folk motifs, they were not identical. And maybe any ethnographer would call me out. And even if these patterns would have been exact, folk designs aren't usually just single motifs. They are layered narratives carrying stories I didn't want to fake in code. Okay. So, years later, which is this year, I flipped that question around, and instead of chasing meaning of designs, I just asked myself, what if I could just create a code that would replicate the building codes, the building blocks of these motifs? And this is my discovery, that I could use reaction diffusion systems to generate such motifs, because the resemblance is quite strange in my opinion. This is an example. That's an embroidery from a blouse, and that's a reaction diffusion generated. So that's just generated by code. It does not trace in any way that motif. I will show you. So what exactly are reaction diffusion systems? These are quite simple mathematical models that are explaining explaining chemical diffusion across spatial grid between two substances, two or more substances. We can call them A and B. You can visualize it here. The black spots are the difference between the substance A and substance B and their concentration. And by just altering the parameters, as I've told you, I could get from this rather chaotic but organic looking pattern output to something that resembles folk designs. Okay. Reaction diffusion has first been introduced by mathematician Alex Turing. So reaction diffusion is an older model, but Alan Turing, in his book, The Chemical Basis of Morphogenesis, explained that this could also function. They were thoroughly studied in chemistry, but he extended their meaning to biology. And using these equations, he could generate models like this one or this one, emulating natural patterns. Using the exact same code that you've seen for the zebra stripes or leopard spots, but a central seed, you will see that we can get a quite folk-looking pattern that evolves in time. So these systems show remarkable qualities, in my opinion, resembling patterns that are culturally significant and aesthetically pleasing. And my idea is, what if there is an underlying universal law that actually influences our shared human perception? I'm just going to let it evolve. It is the same code that generated the spots, but only the grid is initialized with the substances A and B. A is full, it's 1, and B is 0. And randomly from place to place, B has another value. While in this case, the central part is B equal 1. And just because I didn't go random and I only use a central seed, it generates very symmetrical mirrored pattern, often found in folk designs. So local interactions generate a global order. So to recap, this is the exact same code as this one. So we can see emergent complexity from very simple rules. The spatial grid I was talking about, in the spatial grid, we are considering for each cell. This one is, for example, 100 by 100. For each cell, we are considering a Moore neighborhood, which is the 8 cells around it and itself. Later on, 2 more parameters were added to the mix, feed and kill ratio, which describe the way these these patterns evolve. It's like a tug of war. While one substance disperses, the other suppresses. I went a bit further, and I went further from the classical reaction diffusion model, which generated what you've seen previously, and used 4 seeds here to try to replicate a more complex motif, often found in carpets and other traditional things. All these demos are dynamic and tweakable. You can find them in the in my paper, and try to modify the parameters, which I'm doing now, and see the way they evolve. So I think this resemblance is not just a coincidence. I think there might be some underlying principles that are governing our affinity to certain shapes across cultures. For example, taking the wave motif, which is found in many cultures and distant cultures and across time, The first one is from ancient Greece. The second one also Spain, Iron Age, and we can see the same motif replicated. It is the wave motif, which is and also from pre-Columbian Mexican culture. It symbolizes values like values. It symbolizes traditions and cyclicity, evolution, journey. What is interesting, not only the fact that we can find these patterns across the world and across time, but we can generate them with that same algorithm that can make zebra spots, zebra stripes, and leopard spots. For example, the one on the left, it's an embroidery, and the one on the right is something I generated with the dynamic script that you can also find in the paper. And I can show you a live evolution of it. So reaction diffusion cannot only make rhombi, stars and crosses, but also this spiral stuff. So it's just a matter of seeding, and I added a bit of color to be more obvious. But for me, the mirroring and the repetition of the pattern is quite striking. Okay, this is another one. This is from a carpet, an old Oltenia carpet. It's a historical region in my country, but as I told you, these patterns are, I think, they are everywhere, and they are quite similar. So the row on top is generated with the reaction diffusion, and this old carpet, if you see, it mirrors the same structures. This is emulating some embroidery. I'm tweaking the parameters as we go, but you can try and play with the code that is in my paper. This is the first one. Okay, so what I'm proposing here is actually a question. I'm not an ethnographer nor an archaeologist, but I'm saying that maybe the patterns are not passed down necessarily, or they don't need to be passed down from generation to generation, but they could be emerging by themselves. And because of a shared human response. I have a nice phrase for that, but okay. Okay, yes. What I'm trying to say that traditional might be less about innovation and more about resonance with the same forces that shape animal skin, cloud formation, and coral. Okay, this is another. So the colored outputs that I've been showing you are heavily modified systems, and the black and white models that I've been showing, like this one. I can find it. They're actually the same equation that Gray, Scott, and Turing used to produce the natural patterns. So while I admit that I kind of modified these ones, I only modified the parameters. The idea stays the same: local order generating global order. So from simple rules, we can obtain quite complex results. I think I'm lost in notes. If you have any questions. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, are there any questions in Berlin or on the stream? Thank you very much, Nicu. Hope you can actually see me now.
Yeah, we got some questions in Berlin, Alex. Shall I?
Do you want to share them, and I'll leave you alone?
Okay, thanks.
Hey, yeah, thank you for your presentation. I was wondering, because in these examples, you oftentimes put like 4 seeds, but already the seeds themselves are creating like symmetrical shapes.
Yes, this is the example you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually only one place I used 4 seeds to try to make some more complex designs.
But will it always be symmetrical? Because, for example, in the beginning, when you had the more organic zebra-inspired patterns, they were not symmetrical at all, no? Like
because there I used the central, I used the random scattered seed, which was random, and here I'm using the same seed, but in the 4 centers that you've seen there, you know. But they're not repeating. Let me just. I'm going to exemplify. Okay, so what's the question?
Yeah, I was just curious if, like, even if you put like a single seed, if it's always going to be symmetrical, or what
Not
causes the
necessarily.
symmetry?
Not necessarily.
Exactly.
But if I just put a single, it's not a single. I'm using like a square, so a defined area in the center for the symmetrical ones. It's like a square where the substance, the second substance, let's call it B, it has some bigger value than 0. If the seed is symmetrical, the output is going to be symmetrical.
Okay.
It's going to grow from that. I will demonstrate this one.
So the seed has a shape.
The seed has a shape and determines the output. But in the same time, look, there, the zebra, it's also something I made. It's dynamic, but you have to be in front of it to be alive. And there's no seed there. Only when you pass by it, it alters some of the grid. And as you see, that's not symmetrical at all. But if you go symmetrically, yes, it's going to be symmetrical. The result is going to be symmetrical.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, I think I have more idea now. But you also say you have the documentation in your paper. So
yes. I explained the parameters there, the seeding strategies for each of.
I think I need to play around with it a bit myself.
Yeah, would help.
We have a question online. Shall I jump in with that?
Sure.
Yeah.
So there's one from Maria Jose who asks, can the patterns be woven? And Madeline Shepherd, who asked relatedly, I'd like to know if the final patterns can be exported to. Have you explored kind of having these patterns travel to other materials? Thank you.
Yes, they can be woven if you have the patience. And yeah, definitely you can export them. So far, I just exported them as images, but I guess you could go 3D or something. I don't know if this answers the question.
Yes, sorry, was there one more question in Berlin?
Yes.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm very interested in your hypothesis that cross-culturally there is something resonance with the patterns or pattern making. Because I just found this is from Yunnan, from China. They have crazy similarities. And like when when Leon jumped to the question, if it is symmetrical, I think that's cross-culturally, all the patterns are making intentionally with this symmetrical kind of patterns. And also in the patterns, if we see the abstraction in the very early times, but how that happens is through travel or when they started. But from my own research background, it's on this Guqin music. So there, it's a script. They written the sound language. It's because the ancestors, they observing all patterns, like a bird's footprint, and then the patterns like leopard and all this, and then also the sounds. So they try to making this into these ideas into patterns to be heard or to see.
Yeah.
So I think this is I really agree, or I resonate with this resonance theories. But how you where this goes, I mean, now you made the pattern generative kind of app, but where you are going to do with this app?
Nothing. It's just for my own research. That's how it started, actually. I was trying to do something, and it just struck me, you know. But I liked what you said there, and I was also thinking about this. For example, a counter argument that you could say is that, okay, humans have always imitated nature, and that's why patterns are similar across distances and times. But the counter argument to that would be that why would we abstract in the same way? For example, the wave, it's 100% similar here in Greece, in Peru, and the flowers. And why would humans choose the exact same way to abstract a thing that they want to replicate? I think that's an open question.
Maybe similar, like the resonance and the sound, where we before we thought what is called
Chladni figures.
Yeah, Chladni figures. It's also very similar. So I think there is also something related very much to the sound, and the sound with resonance. We just don't find the language to describe.
Thank you.
One more question.
Yes, thank you. So I feel like what you've shared now with separate images, they kind of reflect like an alphabet. You have separated the symbols that normally form a language. When it comes to ethnography, do you think your script could put together the message as well, like the language, not just the letters?
Not yet. I think the basic scripts I'm working with can only make the letters, not the alphabet. And I actually try to avoid that because I don't want to be inaccurate, ethnographically inaccurate, because they are usually layered and put in a sequence that you can replicate, but I didn't want to make that effort. I'm just focusing on the building blocks themselves. As a further, as you said, where am I going to with this? I want to go as simple as possible. For example, the one with four seeds, it's a highly modified model. But I'm trying to replicate as many folk motifs with as little modifications to the code as I can, just to show the similarity in the forces that are driving the stripes and spots on the animals and our affinity to certain shapes. I'm just saying that we are all one, hippie stuff. So something like that.
Is there potential for an ethnographer to come work with you and potentially develop the language?
Yeah, sure, definitely. My number is no. You can reach me pigeon mail. Okay.